Good morning and welcome to episode 11 of the Duval 22 podcast. My name is Gus Logue. Today I'm very excited to be joined by my old co-host, my old co-host at 1010XL on the Duval Rundown podcast. It is Mia O'Brien. Mia, thank you so much for being here. It's great to be back on the airwaves with you. Neither of us are at 1010XL anymore, so why don't you fill the people in on where they can find your work now?
Yeah, as I've joked with multiple people here in the last week, hired gun, master of none, but a jack of many trades. I am on ESPN radio nationally. I don't know when this podcast is dropping, but I'm hosting at least in the next week. I know I'm hosting this upcoming Friday, the 24th, following game one of the World Series. And then I will also be, which I'm very excited to be hosting NFL Game Day on ESPN radio on Sunday. Bosses
Mm,
were very excited because since it's the Jags bye week, they were like, "Hey, we want to give you a try." So, except Gus, I'm going to be doing it after I run my first triathlon in the morning. So, fascinated.
triathlon. Wow.
Yeah, junior triathlon, to be clear, it's a
Okay.
5K, 8 mile bike ride, just a swim around a lagoon, beach walk, So, but yeah, it'll be interesting. Been practicing for that. So, and then I'm just gonna stock up on coffee, maybe a power nap, and then we'll be on the airwaves from 5 to 9 on Sunday. And then, of course, I also work at the University of North Florida in the leadership department. In addition to my role with ESPN Plus broadcast there and at Jacksonville University. And then I also host the Club 904 podcast syndicated on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 channel.
There you go. Well, fans can certainly check all that out. This will probably be, I'll probably put this out Wednesday morning. We're recording Tuesday afternoon. We were originally going to plan on Sunday afternoon, but the Jaguars lost in week six to the Los Angeles Rams over in London. The final score was 35-7. It was never really close. The Rams jumped out to a 21-0 lead in, I believe, the second quarter. So it was just an ass whooping, honestly, from Sean McVay,
I hear
and
that's a
let
universal language. Is this true, Gus? I hear that that's a universal love language.
I mean the language they speak over there in London isn't that dissimilar from what we say, but yeah, I think it is universal. It translated 2 weeks in a row, first at Everbank Stadium in week five against the Seahawks, and then in week six against the Rams. Two just super deflating losses. The Jaguars do go into their bye week with a 4-3 record. They're in second place in AFC South, and their schedule does lighten up after the bye. And so, like, you could definitely spin it both ways, whether you're a half glass full or a half glass empty kind of person. But Mia, just usually I go over like kind of a one main takeaway from the offense and one main takeaway from the defense. But I want to kind of like look ahead in this podcast to the
Mhm.
bye week and ahead. So for Sunday's game, the loss against the Rams, just like what's one takeaway that you had, whether it was an on-field observation, a post-game storyline, just something that keeps coming to the top of the head for you.
Yeah, obviously, Austin Lane has dubbed it the Civil War of Jaguars Twitter, whether you are for Trevor Lawrence, against Trevor Lawrence, are you blaming the receivers for the drops? Are you blaming the offensive line or are you blaming the quarterback? I tend to fall somewhere in the middle. I was on the phone on my way back to the home studio with some league sources who are asking the same exact question about, does he have the fire in the belly? Is he getting past his first read? Is he so focused on trying to redevelop his swing, if you may, in Liam Cohen's system? He's so focused on, I got to get the footwork right, but I also got to make sure I hold the ball, but I also got to make, there's too much going on. Can he actually handle that? And so that's the biggest takeaway is, where do you stand on this chicken or the egg question? Is it Trevor or is it the operation? So we're right back to where we were. The difference being, and one league source I was just speaking with said it, I think that comparatively to his last two head coaches, with all due respect, maybe not so much to the first, but to Doug Peterson especially, Liam Cohen understands that he has to teach Trevor. He is in this for the long haul to teach Trevor. Now, do I think, and I'm going to use the same analogy I keep using because now I work at a university full time, so I can say this. Do I think that Liam thought Trevor truly skated by in his undergrad and master's, and now he's in a PhD program and he's swimming and in over his head? I don't think he expected it to be quite like that. I think he expected there to be a learning curve, though. Maybe it's a little steeper than he anticipated, but I believe, and again, this is not having spoken to Liam directly about this. This is just talking to people around the building and conversations with him in the in press conferences and around the Miller Electric Center. Like, I I know that Liam Cohen always knew that there was going to be a curve to this. And I believe James Gladstone and Tony Baselli also knew there was always going to be hey, we've got to unlearn certain habits. We've got to learn better habits. We've got to redevelop this, that. So, from that perspective, Gus, I think they're largely where they thought they'd be. It's just the fact that they started 4-1 and everyone said everything is awesome. And maybe it wasn't as awesome as we previously thought.
Right. To your point about like the PhD and graduate and all that, I feel like maybe Trevor didn't quite graduate from his graduate degree. Like he wasn't really quite ready to take that next step. And not that he like ever won't be, but I think like maybe the Jaguars put a little bit too much on not just his plate, but the entire offense's plate. I want to definitely make that point that I think it's like not just Trevor. I mean, as you're saying, it's the chicken and the egg. It's a little bit of everything. I think like maybe the biggest issue with the offense right now is a lack of trust, which has not really changed from previous years. Like Trevor isn't really trusting his wide receivers, which is understandable given like the sloppy routes and the consistent drops. He's not trusting his offensive line, which is troublesome, but again, like kind of understandable. It feels like he was totally bought into the system at the beginning of the year, but especially like this past week against the Rams, like he was turning down more throws than he has in any other game this year. And so maybe he's losing a little bit of trust in the system. I think Cohen maybe doesn't have full trust in him. It feels like a lot of like their, again, until Sunday, like a lot of their deep shot attempts were kind of like schemed up play calls of like, okay, like we're going to go deep when Cohen likes to look and like when he calls a play that they're going deep. It's not like they had a super vertical offense with multiple vertical routes and concepts. And so I think that like all of that just builds up and it leads to like the drops and like the pre-snap penalties and just like an unsmooth operation. Like there's just been no flow in the offense, and I feel like we've seen glimpses of it, but it really hasn't been fully there. And so I think that Liam did say on Monday, I believe, that like one thing that he was going to do during the bye week was just to like kind of draw back the offense a little bit and really hammer home like the 80 to 85% of concepts in the playbook that are like their main thing. So I think that one thing that he likes and like that Doug Peterson in the past likes is to like throw everything at your team because then you can throw the entire playbook like at your opponents and make various adjustments in game. But that can be pretty overwhelming, especially in the first year of a new scheme, a new regime, to be able to like get the entire playbook immediately. So I think that if the Jaguars do kind of simplify their offense a little bit and dial it back a little bit, and they don't ask their players to remember so many route concepts, so many blocking assignments, et cetera, then like when they'll have more trust between the players. When Trevor's throwing a choice route to Travis Hunter and they've repped it 100 times instead of doing 20 different routes 5 different times, then I think that'll end up being beneficial for the offense.
Which brings me to this, Gus. Are we not back at square one? And like this idea of, and again, this is not to poo poo the men in that building because I have immense respect for them, but like, do we just have, dare I say it, dumb players? Is that where we're at?
Well, I think like my kind of main takeaway, honestly, from the game was just like the lack of experience in the coaching staff. Like Cohen has talked before about how like one thing he's learned in this season so far already was like having trust in the guys that he hired to kind of carry out their jobs. Because Cohen is definitely like his former boss McVay, a bit of a perfectionist and wants to have his hands in absolutely everything and triple check it 8 times to make sure that it's like exactly the way that he wants. And so he has to have a little bit of trust in his assistant coaches and positional coaches to do their jobs rather than him doing everything. But I think that like the positional coaches, I don't know the last time the Jaguars had a good like receivers coach. I feel like it shows up every season of like not just the drops and like the inability to finish plays, but like a lack of ability kind of to start plays and to even like get open, run routes the way that you're supposed to, or like run make the right decision on choice routes, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think that like obviously the Jaguars are not yet the LA Rams East, like we were kind of talking about before the season. Like obviously, like it's not just that Liam Cohen and James Gladstone have been in the Rams building before, but like everything that they do seems to be very Rams centric. But they just don't really have they have like the model and the idea, but they just don't really have the experience that obviously the current Los Angeles Rams do. And so I think that maybe they don't. Maybe they have dumb players, like you're saying.
Well, and
Maybe
again,
it's
it's
about the
not.
guys they're bringing in, but I also think it's about the coaches for sure.
It's just like more so the situational awareness and
Right.
like That I just don't know. And, I had another league source who was asking me today about, is there like a lack of leadership in the locker room? And that's probably cliche. But ultimately, like as much as this roster had nearly 60% turnover since James Gladstone and Liam Cohen arrived, and it's only continued with the recent trade of Tyson Campbell, like I still feel like a lot of these guys in that locker room don't know any different. And the guys who do maybe aren't vocally expressing, like, hey, well, this is how Baker did it. Or, oh, hey, this is how Dak did it. This is how CeeDee Lamb did it, And not that you need to compare yourself because you don't want to be anyone other than who you are authentically. And that is something that Liam and James have preached as well. But certainly in terms of just again, like I don't know, like it feels like they don't know any different and it doesn't look any different from a season ago at times. And I don't believe that that is what is being preached by the coaches and the front office because pretty much across the board, that's all new.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we do just need to give them a little bit more time. Like it's been 7 games
Right.
into a new regime. Like potentially they like something clicks during the bye week, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, yeah, this is a different organization, a different team. So we shall see. I think certainly one of the most interesting storylines, probably the most interesting storyline, not even just as like a storyline for like something to talk about off the field, but also in terms of on-field implications for the rest of the season for the Jaguars is the Travis Hunter experiment. And so I'm curious your thoughts, Mia, because like the Jaguars could definitely use some explosiveness on both sides of the ball. They have the ninth fewest explosive plays on offense, and they've allowed the fourth most explosive plays on defense. And so Travis Hunter's playmaking could really be used on both sides of the ball. Like you saw on Sunday, Devontae Adams scored a touchdown against all three of Jacksonville's starting cornerbacks, and then Travis Hunter's first defensive snap was in the second half, and he blanketed Devontae Adams. Maybe not blanketed, but he forced a pass breakup against
Right.
Devontae Adams on like a critical man coverage rep on third down to force a punt. And so like it feels like the Jaguars are like in a spot where it's like, where can this guy like help us the most and like be a problem solver for us? And so like where do you expect his usage to kind of fluctuate on both sides of the ball? It does seem like it's trending more offensive recently.
Right. But I think that that is a byproduct of Brian Thomas Jr.'s struggles.
Mm.
I think that, and we workshopped this on the post game edition of Club 904 on Sunday. I believe that because this offense was built under the notion that Brian Thomas Jr. would ascend to being a number one wide receiver who can play all three wide receiver positions, has no issue going over the middle, has sure hands, whether streaking down the field or coming across on an in breaking route. Because that's how this offense was constructed, the thought was okay, that lightens the load off Travis Hunter. It allows for him to learn one position at a time methodically, but it also will create opportunities for him in space because there will be such blanketed coverage towards number 7. That has not happened. And with Brenton Strange on IR, you now take another potential game wrecker out of the opposing team's scouting plan.
Right.
So that is where I believe they're in a very dicey situation because the offense needs to run through Travis, but you also can't deny he's been your best corner statistically and per the eye test. And so what I have essentially thrown out there, just do it. Make him like he was at Colorado. Make him play almost every single snap because I do think that when he is in rhythm and when he is most fluid at both positions is when he is not leaving the field. And I think you saw at the San Francisco game, part of why it was a little up and down was because he was on the sideline so much. And so not that he's not locked in on the sideline because I think he is, but I think he finds that flow state when he truly is in on every snap. Now, I respect the idea of number 1, you want to give him a little bit of rest because this is not Colorado. This is not the Big 12. And so that's where I've said, fine, if on base downs on defense, you're that committed to Jordan Lewis and Buster Brown as your 2 outside corners, fine. Fine. But as soon as either number 1, the opposition has a de facto number 1 wide receiver who's a top 10 receiver in the league, or the moment you go to nickel, he's got to be on the field. That's the operation on defense. And on offense, I'm fascinated to see, knowing that Liam Cohen has been so transparent in that they taught him the slot wide receiver position first. The plan wasn't to teach him X or the Z until next year, but they have no choice now. And Matt Harmon has the stats. I saw it earlier today. 59% or 51%, excuse me. I think it was 51% of Travis Hunter's reps were from the slot, or 59%. I forget exactly what the number is off the top of the dome. And then 40 some odd percent were from the outside. And so whether that is them saying like just run a go route or just run a curl, or if it's them actually teaching him another position on the fly mid-season, I think you're already seeing signs that they are moving towards an offensive operation where he is the focal point, not number seven.
That makes a lot of sense. We're definitely going to be talking a lot more about Travis Hunter the rest of the season. My next question for you, Mia, who is a player that like is maybe flying under the radar right now that we will be talking a lot more about after the bye week? And so like the best example for that right now is like Devin Lloyd, even though he has missed basically the past two games with calf tightness. Like we're definitely talking about Devin Lloyd a lot more at this point than anyone really expected before the season began. So who are we going to be talking about a lot more after the bye week in Jacksonville?
I'm going to answer this two part. Number one, my easy answer is Buster Brown, just because I think that he, in their eyes, is a solid corner in this scheme. They viewed Tyson Campbell as a solid corner in this scheme. That's why they felt comfortable shipping Tyson out of town, because you're not going to pay someone top 10 money at the position if they are solid and their understudy is also solid and is in a contract year and potentially could open up the door for you to then bring somebody else in, extend Newsome, whatever they so choose. So that's the short answer. My second answer to that would be, are we going to see any of these young rookies? Because we have heard for months that the best 11 are going to play on both sides of the ball and that they are not afraid to play the young guys. So whether that is Wyatt Milam stepping into a role on the offensive line, Rayon Lane seeing more snaps at safety, if it is the two young designated edge rushers, because I know they're not the rugged edge defenders that Emmanuel Ogbah or Dewan Smoot are in the run defense, but could we see more BJ Green, more Danny Strigow? I'm interested to see if the Jaguars actually not only say it, but they are about it and actually take those words and put it into action.
Absolutely. Now, another action the Jaguars could take is to be make more moves at the NFL trade deadline. Obviously, they did already swap Tyson Campbell for Greg Newsome, but that's my final question for you, Mia. Just like, what are your thoughts going into the deadline? Are there any positions you think that they're really going to be targeting? What are you expecting?
Yeah, well, I'd be remiss if I didn't note that our friend John Shipley pointed out to me that Devon Hamilton has the same number of pressures as Mason Graham, but we're not allowed to talk about that. Look, I mean, I would have been fine with Mason Graham, but hey, here we are. You would have been complaining about his usage and his impact on the game too, folks. He plays next to Myles Garrett. I would play well if I was playing next to Myles Garrett, and I'm 5'2", 125 pounds. Anyways, yeah, interior of the defensive line, because for everyone lamenting that you don't see 41, you don't see 44, well, the truth is they're playing the guys on the interior pretty much straight up, because they don't have to worry about them the same way they do have to worry about 41 and certainly 44 once he has the club hand no longer on and he's actually able to grasp with that other hand. And so I think that by adding someone who's not just a run stuffer but can actually create more of an interior push, that's not to say Eric Armstead has certainly looked more like what we saw in San Francisco than what we saw a season ago. And Hamilton's been okay. But I think that they recognize that to maximize those two edge rushers, you can't just say, well, we're going to rotate Dewan Smoot inside. Because if anything, I feel like Dewan Smoot was more effective in the first 2-3 weeks of the season because he was playing his natural position on the edge. And so I think you need to add a actual interior defensive lineman one way or another who can create those opportunities for the guys on the edge.
Yeah, I think the past 2 weeks have shown that, like, if anything, maybe the Jaguars' trenches on both sides of the ball could be improved. And so it'll be interesting to see what Gladstone Company are able to mix up before the November 4th NFL trade deadline. Mia, I'll let you go now. I know you got plenty more things to do. Check out Mia's work at ESPN Radio and Action News Jax and at Mia O'Brien TV on Twitter/X. Mia, unless you got anything else to plug or get off your chest, I don't know. That'll be it. Thanks again
Yeah.
for hopping on.
Always appreciate it, and always great to bring the collab back together. The band is back together, folks.
That's right. Yeah, it was a good time. All right, Mia. Until next time, thanks everyone for watching and listening. I'll be back next week, probably with Shipley, but we'll see. Until then, thank you guys.